Welcome back to High Mileage Need Love 2, the channel where I set out to prove that high mileage cars like this one make for great deals and even better daily drivers. Before I go into the specifics about the reliability of the MK5 GTI, I just want to give a thank you to DEUTSCHE Auto Parts and the Humble Mechanic for a lot of the information that I was able to put together when I was searching for one of these was through their videos and their reviews. So just wanted to give them a shout out. If you're looking for any more information that I may not have provided here, be sure to check out their channels. It's a wealth of knowledge, especially on the DEUTSCHE Auto Parts website. They list all the common problems and have an in-depth video as to what to look for when doing a used car inspection on a MK5 GTI specifically. This GTI took over for the previous model, the MK4, which had received tons and tons of negative press due to reliability issues, poor quality control, and just generally not what the GTI namesake was meant for. So Volkswagen decided to get it right with the next generation, and here we have the MK5 GTI, which corrected almost all of the issues with the MK4. The MK5 ran from the 2005 model year all the way up to the 2009 model year. Afterwards, it was taken over by the Model 6. The MK5 GTI came in two body configurations, a 3-door hatchback or a 5-door hatchback, the fifth and the third door being the rear hatch itself. Every MK5 came with the same engine, 2.0 turbocharged inline 4-cylinder engine, and either a 6-speed manual gearbox or a 6-speed automatic Triptronic gearbox. The engine was slightly revamped after 2008, and we'll go over those features later. Both transmission choices are very robust, with a small exception to the automatic transmission needing a fluid and a minor service every 30 to 50,000 miles, especially if the car is tuned. The MK5 GTI is really sought after in the used car market for its affordability, practicality, and tunability. It makes for a great first modders car because it's very easy to tune, to put out more power, and generally easy to work on for the DIYers. Every GTI came with the namesake plaid seats, unless you opted for the leather trim, in which case you got flat black leather with a GTI embossed on the shoulder area. They also came with arguably the best shifter I've ever laid my hands on, which is the golf ball shifter. It looks like this in the manual gearboxes and like this in the automatics. One issue a lot of GTI owners have with the car is the stock radio. Even the upgraded radio with navigation and satellite is complete garbage. Highly recommend upgrading to a Apple CarPlay radio. They are usually available on eBay, AliExpress, or Amazon, and plug and play. Just be warned that prior to 2008, these cars had, I believe, a gateway module, and installing a aftermarket radio could cause a parasitic drain, and every time you get in the car, you'll need to jumpstart the battery. The 4-door GTI is by far my favorite in terms of looks and practicality. I'm 5'7", and sitting behind myself, I still have plenty of room. Do keep in mind though that if you are sitting in the front, these are very low bucket seats and slightly difficult to get in and out of. Getting in and out of the driver's seat, depending on the kind of position you like to drive in, could be somewhat of a hassle, especially if you have joint problems or you're not within your BMI range. The MK5 GTI is very spacious in terms of cargo room for a hatchback, and to demonstrate, I can fit one of me in the back. And if you don't carry a spare tire, you've got a little bit more room to store your favorite noodles or a beach ball. One of the most satisfying features on the GTI is the way hello Mr. Spider, the handle opens up to unlock the trunk. On newer models, this will actually pop like this to show the rear view camera. Do you hear that? No? That's because the GTI has a really well sound dampened cabin. And to demonstrate, I'm going to start my car, which has a modified exhaust. Windows down, windows up. So the GTI came with one engine that was revamped midway through 2008. That engine was the 2.0 turbocharged inline four-cylinder you see here. The original one was known as the fuel stratified injection engine, later to be succeeded by the turbo stratified injection engine. And what Volkswagen did during the revamp were some minor adjustments to reliability concerns regarding the engine itself. The FSI motor came with a timing belt, whereas the TSI motor came with a timing chain. The FSI motor came with a cam follower and a high pressure fuel pump, whereas the TSI came with a cam roller and a high pressure fuel pump. These two things were done in order to increase the longevity of the engine. The FSI was known for exploding due to the high pressure fuel pump breaking the cam follower, which is a small cup that rides on the high pressure fuel pump and the camshaft lobe behind this case, and it helps dictate the amount of fuel pressure for the injectors to inject into the engine based on how fast you want to go or how fast you're going. This cam follower should have been replaced every 5 to 10,000 miles, 5 being the extreme preventative maintenance and 10 being a safe point. If you look online, you'll notice tons of 2.0 turbo FSI motors being parted out along with the car because of this issue. Owners would buy the car unknowing that this was a concern that they should address and essentially grenade their motor within a few thousand miles of driving. It's highly recommended that if you're doing a pre-purchase inspection to come with a torque set and simply undo the 3 bolts and just inspect the cam follower and the high pressure fuel pump itself to make sure that they're both fine and don't need immediate replacement, and if they do, budget for it. It's not that much. The cam follower itself can be found on DEUTSCHE Auto Parts or FCP Euro for below $30, along with the 3 stretch bolts. On higher mileage cars like this one, it's normal to experience a stiff shifter, and this is due to 2 main failures. One is this pivot point right here. Occasionally you'll also have the shift tower up and down linkage that could also become stiff, and then on the inside you have your shifter, which, as you can see, has old grease and just doesn't look like it is very smooth anymore. The correction to this could be to replace the whole shifter unit or to remove and re-lubricate so that it shifts smoother. PCV valves also tend to fail and can cause a check engine light. It's usually this culprit right here that can be replaced fairly easily with 2 clamps and installing a new PCV valve. You could also have a large evap leak, and that could be due to the intake manifold itself, which in that instance would have to be replaced. And if you are replacing this, you can also take care of another issue, which is carbon deposits on the engine, and have the valves walnut blasted. Some quality of life issues that come with a high mileage GTI or an older GTI ownership are going to be the door panels. The cloth on the door panels tends to sag and come off, and that you either replace the door panel or you have some kind of upholstery skills that you can fix it yourself. The headliner does the same thing. It'll also sag and begin to come down starting from the rear and work its way up. The seats are, again, bucket seats and could be uncomfortable to some drivers. Keep that in mind. Make sure that this is something that you want to drive every single day if it is going to be a daily driver. Window regulators on these cars tend to fail, so make sure all the windows work. If you have a 4-door, if you have a 2-door, make sure the 2 windows work. The back cup holder is very flimsy, so that tends to break. Make sure that works. If you got kids or you're going to be carrying passengers that like to drink, just make sure that cup holder is working. Another issue is the armrest. It can be very annoying because it slides forward and back very easily, and when you raise it up to a comfortable position, if let's say you move it to get your cup out of the cup holder, or you accidentally lift it up, and then you got to reset it by lifting it all the way up and bringing it back down, and that's kind of annoying. Last but not least is the seats are very tough to clean for some reason. They made them from some aerospace material that the only way to really clean them is to replace them or pull them out of the car and power wash them with a 5 horsepower concrete power washer, I think. Apart from that, the car is amazing and it's always fun to drive, very practical, and I'm really enjoying my re-ownership of this car. I'm now going to read from you some common issues from my book of issues. Aside from the cam follower failing, you also have control arms that can go bad, and in that instance you'll hear a clunking noise coming from either the front left or the front right. In the rare instance that the rear control arms fail, you'll also hear it from the rear left or the rear right. Axles tend to go bad, and the indicator for a bad axle is while you're turning, you'll hear clicking. Rust on these cars is very common. They weren't very rust proof from the factory, and where you'll notice the rust is typically on the rocker panels underneath. Take a look there and just make sure that none of the rust is structural. Oil leaks are also very common with these engines. It's up to the buyer's discretion whether or not they want to repair it. If it's severe, I would look into it, because your turbo and your engine both rely on the oil to stay alive and stay cooled. So if it's a significant oil leak, I would have it checked out. If it's nothing too major and you're able to top it off between oil changes in the amount of, let's say, a quart and a half, and you can live with it, then live with it. Brake calipers. If the car's been sitting for an extended period of time, or it just has a lot of miles and the pads and rotors weren't changed in time and they were allowed to fully compress and essentially pull the whole piston out of the caliper, you could experience a seized caliper. The only way to check is to get the car rolling and then put it in neutral and see how long it coasts. If it doesn't seem to coast as long as it should, then it's probably a stuck caliper. The other way you can check this out is you put it on a lift and try spinning each wheel individually. So how do you go about getting a great deal on a MK5 GTI? Well, you can use the information in this video as a negotiation tactic, so that when you go look at one and you inform the buyer of issues and concerns you might have, you can use those to drive down the price. Before you buy the car, always buy the seller. I got this bit of advice a long time ago from a good friend of mine, and I've always used it since. If the seller is talking too fast or talking over the car when you're trying to listen to something, it's indicative that they're trying to hide something, and that you should probably shy away or politely ask them to step aside and just let you look at the car. In the rare instance that you are dealing with a scuzzo seller, he's probably going to disregard any request you make and still talk over you, at which point you can just simply walk away or be more firm in your request and tell him, I'm not going to buy the car unless you just back off and let me look at it. I've had instances with seller like this, and this is the only way to deal with them. Be confident in yourself and offer lower than you're willing to spend. And the reason for this is you want to make an offer and justify that offer with the concerns that you found out, or the concerns that you may have in case they don't have records of maintenance. Use this as a negotiation tactic. You did the cam follower? Well, can you prove it? You did the suspension? Well, can you prove it? You changed the oil? Well, can you prove it? And so on and so forth. If they can't prove it, well then I'm going to assume it wasn't done, and I'm going to budget it into my purchase price so that I can do these things once the car is in my possession. Be firm, work your way up slowly, and don't pay more than you're willing to spend before you get there. Always bring cash. Money talks, and if you don't have cash and you're ready to buy, a seller will most likely hold firm to their price. So if you show up to a car and you know it's right for you and you want it, pull out the cash. Tell them, I made you an offer, I have the cash here, I'll take the car from you right now. A bird in the hand is better than two in a bush. Lastly, don't talk yourself into a purchase because you feel it might be the last one, or you may not find another one like it. It's always better to walk away and spend a little more on something that's not broken than spending less on something that is and spending more to fix that. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe. I appreciate all the likes and feedback you guys are leaving. If you have any questions, put them in the comment section below. And the next video I'm going to be doing with this car will be all the issues that it currently has. So I've done essentially what is a full workup on the car, all the fault codes that I have that are causing my ABS, traction control, and brake light. And we're going to be diving a little bit deeper, figuring out what those issues are caused by, and doing some how-tos as to repairing them, because I'm sure I'm not the only one suffering with this. Thank you very much for watching. Remember that high mileage cars need love too, and high mileage cars like this one make for great deals and even better daily drivers. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.